The Valari Empire had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. Nobody remembered a time before them. They had conquered hundreds of species, destroyed countless worlds, and built a military so powerful that most civilizations surrendered the moment they saw Valari ships in their skies. The Empire believed it was invincible. It had never been proven wrong. So when Valari long-range sensors detected a new spacefaring species on the outer edge of the galaxy, Emperor Tholvax did not worry. He simply ordered Admiral Gorveth to take a standard subjugation fleet and crush them. 3,000 warships would be more than enough. It always was. The species called themselves humans. The Valari scouts reported they were primitive, emotional, and lived on a small blue planet called Earth. Their technology was centuries behind Valari standards. Their military was laughable. Admiral Gorveth expected the conquest to take less than a week. He was very, very wrong. Lieutenant Park Yuna was having a bad day. Her patrol vessel, the Dauntless, was not a real warship. It was an old cargo hauler that engineers had modified with weapons and sensors. The ship was slow, poorly armored, and held together mostly by luck and constant repairs. Yuna commanded a crew of 47 people, and most of them were scientists and engineers, not soldiers. Their mission was simple: sit at the edge of human space and watch for trouble. If trouble came, send a warning to Earth and run away. Nobody expected them to fight. Nobody expected them to survive if real danger appeared. When 3,000 Valari warships dropped out of hyperspace in front of her, Yuna did not panic. She had trained for this moment. Everyone in the United Earth Fleet had trained for this moment. They knew aliens existed. They knew hostile contact was possible. They had prepared. She opened a channel to Earth Command. Her voice was calm and professional. "This is Scout Vessel Dauntless. We have contact with unknown hostile fleet. Approximately 3,000 warships. Uploading all tactical data now. Please advise." The response came 30 seconds later. General Bei Jiwu's voice was steady. "Dauntless, we read you. The Eregnal Army is mobilizing. Estimated arrival time is 6 days. You are ordered to delay the enemy as long as possible. Good luck, Lieutenant." 6 days. Yuna looked at her crew. 47 people against 3,000 warships. The math was not good. Her tactical officer, Corporal Hando Yoon, spoke first. "Lieutenant, we cannot survive a direct engagement. Our weapons can barely scratch their shields." "I know." Yuna studied the enemy formation on her display. The Valari ships were arranged in a standard conquest pattern. They expected no resistance. They expected humans to surrender or die quickly. But we do not need to destroy them. We need to slow them down. A message came through on all frequencies. The Valari Admiral's face appeared on screen. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 eyes that looked at Yuna with complete contempt. "Primitive vessel," Admiral Gorveth said. "You will surrender immediately. Disable your weapons and prepare to be boarded. If you resist, you will be destroyed. This is your only warning." Yuna muted the channel and turned to her crew. Sergeant Kim Yoonji sat at the weapons station. Her hands were steady, but Yuna could see fear in her eyes. Everyone was afraid. That was normal. What mattered was what they did with that fear. "Listen to me," Yuna said. "I am not going to lie to you. Our chances of survival are very small. But our mission is not to survive. Our mission is to protect Earth. Every hour we delay these aliens is another hour for our families to evacuate. Every hour is another hour for the Eregnal Army to arrive. We are the wall. We are the first line of defense. And we will not break." The crew was silent for a moment. Then Do-hyun spoke. "What is the plan, Lieutenant?" Yuna smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had already accepted what was coming. We fight smart. We use everything we have, and we make them work for every meter they advance. She unmuted the channel to Admiral Gorvith. Admiral, I am authorized to negotiate terms. But I should warn you, you have made a significant mistake. Gorvith laughed. The sound was cold and cruel. Mistake? You are one ship. I have 3,000. What mistake could I possibly have made? You assumed we would surrender. Yuna leaned forward. Humans do not surrender. We were born fighting. We fought our own planet to survive. We fought each other for thousands of years. And now we will fight you. She cut the channel before Gorvith could respond. Yunji, deploy the drone swarms. Dohyun, calculate evasive patterns. Everyone else, prepare for combat operations. We are going to make these aliens regret coming to our space. The Dauntless lurched forward, its old engines groaning with effort. Around the ship, hundreds of small objects launched from hidden compartments. They were autonomous combat drones, each one no larger than a human hand. The Valari had never seen anything like them. Their sensors could barely detect them. 3 Valari destroyers moved to intercept the Dauntless. They expected easy prey. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by swarms of tiny machines that cut through their armor like water through sand. The destroyers' crews panicked. They fired their weapons wildly, hitting nothing. The drones were too small, too fast, too many. Within minutes, 2 destroyers were disabled. The third retreated, its hull covered in holes. Admiral Gorvith watched from his flagship. For the first time in his long career, he felt something strange, uncertainty. One tiny human ship had just humiliated 3 of his vessels. What manner of warfare is this? He demanded. On the Dauntless, Yuna allowed herself a small moment of satisfaction. They had won the first exchange, but the war had just begun. 6 days was a very long time. Dohyun, she said quietly. How long until the Eregnal army arrives? 5 days, 23 hours, Lieutenant. Yuna nodded. They had bought themselves 1 hour. Only 143 more to go. She settled into her command chair and watched the Valari fleet regroup. They would come again. Stronger this time. More careful. But she would be ready. Humanity would not fall today. Admiral Gorvith had conquered 17 species in his career. He had burned worlds and crushed rebellions. He had never failed. But now, sitting in his command chair and staring at the tactical display, he felt something he had not felt in centuries. Frustration. One ship. One tiny, pathetic human ship was making a fool of him. After the disaster with the destroyers, Gorvith sent a cruiser. The cruiser was 10 times larger than the Dauntless, with shields that could survive a nuclear blast and weapons that could crack a planet. It should have ended the fight in seconds. The cruiser lasted 18 minutes. The human drones did not attack its hull this time. Instead, they targeted the engine exhausts, the sensor arrays, the communication dishes. They found every weak point in the cruiser's design and exploited them with terrible precision. When the cruiser finally limped back to the fleet, its captain was weeping with shame. Gorvith ordered a full squadron forward. 12 ships, moving in tight formation, covering each other's blind spots. Surely this would be enough. It was not enough. Lieutenant Park Yuna had not slept in 36 hours. Her eyes burned and her head ached, but she refused to leave the bridge. Every decision mattered now. One mistake could end everything. 12 ships approaching, Dohyun reported. His voice was hoarse from hours of constant updates. Formation is tight. They are learning. Good. Yuna studied the display. That means we need to teach them something new. Yoonji, do we have any of the special packages left? Sergeant Kim Yoonji checked her inventory. 3 remaining, Lieutenant. Use 1. Target the lead ship. Inji nodded and pressed a sequence of buttons. A single drone launched from the Dauntless. It was larger than the others, about the size of a small dog. It moved slowly, almost lazily, toward the Volari formation. The Volari gunners ignored it. One drone was not a threat. They had learned to fear the swarms, but a single drone was nothing. That was their mistake. The drone reached the lead ship and attached itself to the hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then it released a burst of electromagnetic energy that overloaded every system on the ship. Lights went dark. Engines died. Weapons went offline. The ship drifted, completely helpless. The formation broke apart in confusion. Ships scattered, afraid of more hidden weapons. And in that moment of chaos, Yuna struck. All drones, attack pattern 7. Focus on their sensor arrays. Blind them. Hundreds of drones swarmed the scattered ships. They did not try to destroy them. They simply blinded them. Within minutes, half the squadron was flying blind, unable to see anything except static on their screens. The remaining ships retreated. Gorveth watched them flee and felt his hand shake with rage. "She is playing with us," he said to his officers. "This human is treating my fleet like toys." On Earth, General Baji Wu watched the battle from Fleet Command. The room was full of officers and analysts, all staring at screens showing the distant engagement. Nobody spoke. They were witnessing something impossible. "How is she doing this?" One officer whispered. "The Dauntless is nothing. It should have been destroyed in the first minute." Jiwoo smiled. She had served with Yuna's father long ago. The family had a tradition of refusing to accept defeat. She is doing it because she has to, because there is no other choice, because that is what humans do when our backs are against the wall. She turned to her staff. "What is the evacuation status?" 78% complete, General. The outer colonies are clear. We are working on the inner systems now. Good. Keep going. Every hour that girl buys us is another 1,000,000 lives saved. Back on the Dauntless, Yuna finally allowed herself to sit down. Her legs were shaking. The adrenaline that had kept her going was starting to fade. Doyun brought her a cup of water. "Lieutenant, you need to rest. Even 1 hour would help." "I cannot." Yuna drank the water in one gulp. "If I sleep, I might not wake up in time. And if I am not here when they attack again, the crew can handle 1 hour. Yuna shook her head. "It is not about handling it. It is about them." She pointed at the Volari fleet on the display. "They are watching me. They know I am the one making decisions. If I disappear, even for an hour, they might think we are weakening. They might attack with everything they have. We cannot afford that." Dohan understood. The battle was not just physical. It was psychological. As long as Yuna appeared strong and confident, the Volari would hesitate. They would wonder what tricks she still had. They would be careful. The moment she showed weakness, they would crush her. "How many drones do we have left?" Yuna asked. 47% of original stock. "We are running low on the electromagnetic packages. Only 2 remaining. Weapon status? Primary cannon is overheating. We can fire maybe 3 more shots before it fails completely. Secondary weapons are at 60%. Hull integrity is holding, but we have minor breaches on decks 3 and 7. Yuna nodded slowly. They were dying. Not quickly, but surely. Every hour cost them more resources they could not replace. The Volari could afford to lose ships. The Dauntless could not afford to lose anything. Time until the Oregnal army arrives? 4 days, 16 hours. 4 days. It felt like forever. Admiral Gorveth appeared on screen again. His 4 eyes were bloodshot with fury. "Human, I have decided to stop playing games. I am sending my dreadnoughts." "You cannot stop them," You cannot hide from them. Surrender now, and I will make your death quick." Yuna looked at the display. 3 massive ships were moving forward. Each one was larger than a small moon, bristling with weapons that could destroy cities in a single shot. She turned back to Gorveth. "Admiral, I appreciate the warning. It gives me time to prepare." "Prepare?" Gorveth laughed. "There is nothing you can do against dreadnoughts." Yuna smiled. It was the same cold smile she had worn since the battle began. "Admiral, every time you have said that, you have been wrong. Why do you think this time will be different?" She cut the channel and turned to her crew. They were all watching her, waiting for orders, trusting her completely. "All right," she said. "Let us figure out how to kill a dreadnought." Nobody laughed. They knew she was not joking. News traveled fast in the Valari Empire. Within hours, every corner of conquered space knew what was happening at the edge of the galaxy. A single human ship was fighting the mighty Valari fleet. A single human ship was winning. The Imperial Senate demanded explanations. How could this happen? How could Admiral Gorveth, the conqueror of 17 worlds, struggle against one primitive vessel? Emperor Thalvax sent angry messages demanding immediate victory. Gorveth's reputation, built over centuries of warfare, was crumbling by the hour. But something else was happening. Something the Valari did not expect. On the mining planet Kethros 7, a Valari overseer walked through the tunnels where slaves worked. The slaves were Marathi, a species the Valari had conquered 600 years ago. They were small creatures with blue skin and large eyes. Broken by generations of brutal labor, the overseer noticed something strange. The Marathi were whispering to each other. They never whispered. They had learned long ago that speaking without permission meant punishment. "What are you talking about?" the overseer demanded, grabbing the nearest slave. The Marathi looked up at him. The overseer expected to see fear in those large eyes. Instead, he saw something different. Something that made his blood run cold. "Hope. The humans," the Marathi said quietly. "They are fighting back. They are not surrendering." The overseer released the slave and stepped back. He felt suddenly afraid, though he did not understand why. What did it matter if some primitive species resisted? The Valari always won in the end. But as he walked away, he could feel the slaves watching him. And for the first time in his life, he wondered if the Valari would always win. Similar scenes played out across the Empire. On factory worlds and prison planets, in the slums of conquered cities and the camps where rebels were held, whispered stories spread like fire. The humans, one ship, still fighting. Species that had accepted Valari rule for centuries began to remember what resistance felt like. Back at the battle, the 3 dreadnoughts moved slowly toward the Dauntless. They did not rush. There was no need. Each dreadnought carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. One tiny human ship was nothing to them. Lieutenant Park Yuna watched them approach on her display. She had not slept in 50 hours. Her hand shook slightly when she reached for her water cup. Around her, the bridge crew worked in exhausted silence. Everyone knew what was coming. "Lieutenant," Sergeant Kim Yoonji said quietly, "we cannot survive a direct hit from those weapons. Our shields will not hold." "I know." Yuna studied the dreadnoughts carefully. They were massive, heavily armored, bristling with cannons. But they were also slow, built for overwhelming power, not speed or agility. We do not need to survive a direct hit. We need to make sure they never get one. She turned to Do-hyun. "Calculate their weapons range. I want to know exactly how close we can get before they can hit us." Do-hyun worked his console. They can fire accurately at approximately 12,000 kilometers. Closer than that, their targeting systems struggle with fast-moving objects. Then we stay at 11,000 kilometers. And we never stop moving. It was a desperate plan. The Dauntless would have to dance around the dreadnoughts, always staying just out of accurate weapons range, constantly changing direction to avoid their slow but devastating firepower. One mistake, one moment of hesitation, and they would be vaporized. But it was the only plan they had. The dreadnoughts opened fire at 15,000 kilometers. Massive energy beams lit up the darkness of space. The Dauntless twisted and spun, its old engines screaming with effort. The shots passed close enough that the crew could feel the heat through the hull. "Return fire," Una ordered. "Target their sensor arrays. We do not need to destroy them. Just blind them." The Dauntless's main cannon fired. The shot hit the lead dreadnought's forward sensors, destroying a small section of equipment. It was like a mosquito biting an elephant. The damage was minimal. But the dreadnought's crew suddenly had a blind spot, a section of space they could not see clearly. Una moved the Dauntless into that blind spot. For hours, the deadly dance continued. The dreadnoughts fired again and again, their weapons tearing holes in the fabric of space. The Dauntless dodged and weaved, always staying just ahead of destruction. Every few minutes, Una would order another shot at the sensors, creating new blind spots, new places to hide. On the Valari flagship, Admiral Gorveth with growing disbelief. The human was still alive. The dreadnoughts, his most powerful weapons, could not hit her. She was too fast, too clever, too unpredictable. "This is impossible," one of his officers said. "She should be dead. How is she doing this?" Gorveth did not answer. He was beginning to understand something terrible. The humans were not primitive. They were not weak. They fought differently, yes. They used strange tactics and unusual weapons. But they were not inferior. They were dangerous. On the Dauntless, Una finally allowed herself a moment to breathe. The dreadnoughts had pulled back to reconsider their approach. She had bought more time. "How long until the Oregnal army arrives?" she asked. 3 days, 2 hours, Doyen replied. 3 days. They had survived almost 3 days already. The Dauntless was battered and exhausted, but still fighting. Still alive, Una opened the channel. Not to Gorveth this time, but to all frequencies. She wanted everyone to hear this. Every Valari ship. Every conquered world that might be listening. "This is Lieutenant Park Una of the United Earth Fleet," she said. Her voice was tired but steady. "We are one ship against an empire. We are 47 humans against 3,000 warships. And we are still here." She paused, letting the words sink in. The Valari believe they cannot be defeated. They are wrong. We have proven it. And when our real fleet arrives, you will understand why. She cut the channel. Across the Valari Empire, billions of beings heard her words. Slaves and prisoners, rebels and dreamers. They heard a human woman, exhausted but unbroken, telling them that the impossible was possible. Admiral Gorveth heard it too. And for the first time in his long life, he felt something cold growing in his chest. Fear, not of the Dauntless. The Dauntless would fall eventually. He had enough ships to ensure that but the human had mentioned something. A real fleet. The Oregnal army. What was the Oregnal army? How many ships did it have? What weapons did it carry? Gorveth did not know. And that uncertainty, that lack of knowledge, was more frightening than any weapon. He sent a message to the Emperor, requesting reinforcements. Just in case, the Emperor did not respond. He was too busy dealing with reports of unrest on a dozen conquered worlds. The galaxy was beginning to change. And it had started with one small ship and 47 stubborn humans who refused to die. Day 5. The Dauntless was dying. Lieutenant Park Una stood on the bridge, though standing was becoming difficult. She had not slept in 4 days. Her uniform was stained with sweat and blood from a wound on her forehead. Around her, the bridge was filled with smoke and the sound of alarms that nobody bothered to silence anymore. Hull breaches on 4 decks. Life support running at 40%. Engines barely functional. The main cannon had exploded 2 hours ago, killing 3 crew members. The drone swarms were almost completely depleted. Of the original 47 crew, 39 remained alive. 8 had died in the endless fighting. Yuna remembered each of their names. She would carry those names forever. Lieutenant Corporal Han Do-yoon reported. His arm was broken, wrapped in a makeshift bandage. He had refused to leave his station. The dreadnoughts are moving again. All 3, plus a support squadron of 50 cruisers. They are coming in from multiple angles. We cannot evade all of them. Yuna looked at the tactical display. Do-yoon was right. The Valari had finally learned. They were surrounding the Dauntless, leaving no escape route. This time, there would be no clever tricks. No last-minute saves. Time until the Original Army arrives? 26 hours. 26 hours. So close. So impossibly close. Sergeant Kim Yoonji spoke from the weapons station. Her console was half destroyed, but she had managed to keep some systems running. Lieutenant, we have 3 drones left. 3. And our secondary weapons are almost out of power. What about the last electromagnetic package? Still functional. But we can only use it once. Yuna nodded slowly. One last trick. One final weapon. It would not be enough to survive 26 hours. But it might be enough to do something important. She opened a channel to her crew. All 39 survivors. They deserve to know the truth. This is Lieutenant Park. I am not going to lie to you. Our situation is bad. The Valari are coming with everything they have, and we cannot stop them all. Some of us, maybe all of us, will not survive the next few hours. She paused. But I want you to know something. We have already won. The crew was silent, listening. 5 days ago, we were supposed to die in the first 5 minutes. Instead, we have held off an empire. We have destroyed 27 enemy ships. We have shown the entire galaxy that the Valari can be hurt, can be beaten, can be made to bleed. Whatever happens next, they will never forget what we did here. The Original Army is coming. They will finish what we started. And when they write the history of this war, the Dauntless will be on the first page. She took a deep breath. Now, let us show these aliens how humans die. With our teeth in their throats and our hands around their necks. Let us make them pay for every meter they advance. Let us give them nightmares. A voice came over the intercom. It was Private Song Minji, barely 20 years old, stationed in the engine room. Lieutenant, if we are going to die, can we at least take a dreadnought with us? Yuna smiled. It was a real smile this time, full of pride and love for her crew. Private, I was just about to suggest that. The plan was insane. It was also their only option. The Dauntless would charge directly at the lead dreadnought. Not to ram it. They were not heavy enough for that to matter. But to get close enough to use the last electromagnetic package. If they could disable the dreadnought's engines, even for a few minutes, it would throw the Valari formation into chaos. And in that chaos, maybe, just maybe, the Dauntless could survive a little longer. Admiral Gorvith watched the human ship turn toward his dreadnoughts. He expected it to flee, to try one more desperate escape. Instead, it was attacking. The human has lost her mind, one of his officers said. Gorvith was not so sure. He had learned over 5 days that Lieutenant Park Yuna did nothing without reason. If she was attacking, she had a plan. All ships, concentrate fire on that vessel. Destroy it before it gets close. The space around the Dauntless exploded with weapons fire. Energy beams and missiles and particle cannons, all focused on one tiny ship. The Dauntless twisted and spun, its damaged engines pushing beyond their limits. Shots hit the hull, tearing holes in the metal. Crew members died at their stations, but the ship kept moving forward. On the bridge, Una held onto her chair as the deck shook violently. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. Smoke filled the air. She could hear screaming from somewhere below decks. "Distance to target?" she shouted. 8,000 kilometers, Do-hyun replied, coughing through the smoke. 7,000. 6. Yoonji, prepare the package. Ready, Lieutenant. The Dauntless was falling apart around them. Power failed on half the decks. The shields collapsed completely. A direct hit destroyed the port engine, sending the ship spinning wildly. 5,000 kilometers, Do-hyun called out. 4,000. Gorvith watched the human ship come closer. It was on fire now, trailing debris and bodies. But still coming. Always coming. What is wrong with these creatures? He whispered. 3,000 kilometers. 2,000. 1,000. Una could see the dreadnought through the main window. It was enormous, filling the entire view. Beautiful and terrible at the same time. Now, Yoonji, now. The last electromagnetic package launched. It covered the final distance in seconds and attached to the dreadnought's main power conduit. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the dreadnought went dark. Every light, every engine, every weapon system simply stopped. The massive ship drifted, completely helpless. Its crew scrambled in darkness, trying to understand what had happened. On the Dauntless, what remained of the crew cheered weakly. They had done it. They had killed a dreadnought, but their celebration was short. The other two dreadnoughts were still active, and now they were very, very angry. Incoming fire, Do-hyun said. His voice was calm now, accepting. Multiple impacts. Hull integrity failing. Una closed her eyes. They had done everything they could. 26 hours short of victory, but they had done everything possible. Then a new voice came over the radio. A human voice, strong and clear. Scout Vessel Dauntless. This is Admiral Choi Taiwan of the UEF Eternal Dawn. The Original Army has arrived early. Hold your position. We are coming to get you. Una opened her eyes. Through the smoke and fire, she could see something on the tactical display. Thousands of new signatures dropping out of hyperspace. Human signatures. The Original Army had arrived. Admiral, she said, her voice breaking. I've never been so happy to hear anyone in my entire life. You have done incredible work, Lieutenant. Now stand down. Let us handle the rest. The Valari fleet turned to face the new threat. What they saw made them freeze in terror. 50,000 warships. Then 60,000. Then 70,000. They kept coming, wave after wave, filling the sky with human steel. And at the front, the flagship Eternal Dawn, larger than any Valari dreadnought. Its weapons already charging. Admiral Gorvith stared at his display. His hands trembled. His four eyes could not believe what they were seeing. The Original Army, he whispered. She said it had not arrived yet. She was telling the truth. The Dauntless was just a scout. Just a scout. 47 humans on a converted cargo ship. Just a scout. The Valari Empire had made a terrible mistake. Admiral Choi Taiwan stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn and looked at the Valari fleet. 3,000 warships that had expected to conquer humanity. They looked very small now. Admiral, his tactical officer reported. The Dauntless is heavily damaged, but still intact. 31 crew members alive. They are requesting immediate medical assistance. Send rescue shuttles now. And prepare all battle groups for engagement. Taiwan's voice was calm but cold. He had seen the footage of the last 5 days. He had watched Lieutenant Park Yuna and her crew fight against impossible odds. He had seen the 8 humans who died keeping their homeworld safe. Someone was going to pay for those deaths. The Regnal army spread out across space like a wave of steel. 73,000 warships, the combined military might of every nation on Earth. They had been building this fleet in secret for 30 years. Ever since humanity first detected signals from alien civilizations. They knew contact would come eventually. They knew it might not be peaceful, but they were ready. Admiral Gorveth watched the human fleet arrange itself for battle. His mind could not accept what he was seeing. The Valari Empire had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. No species had ever challenged them successfully. And now this young, primitive race was fielding a fleet that outnumbered his, owned by more than 20 to 1. His communications officer spoke nervously. "Admiral, the human flagship is hailing us. Put them through." Admiral Taiwan's face appeared on screen. He was an older man with gray hair and steady eyes. Behind him, Gorveth could see a bridge full of humans, all watching with grim satisfaction. "Admiral Gorveth," Taiwan said, "I am giving you one chance to surrender. Power down your weapons, lower your shields, and prepare to be boarded. If you refuse, I will destroy your entire fleet. You have 60 seconds to decide." Gorveth felt something he had never felt before. Complete helplessness. He had 3,000 ships against 70,000. His weapons were inferior. His tactics had failed. The choice was not really a choice at all. He could not form the words. Valari admirals did not surrender. It was unthinkable. 30 seconds, Admiral. Gorveth looked at his officers. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders. Some of them were crying. They knew what was coming. He thought of his family back home. His children. His grandchildren. If he fought, they would never see him again. If he surrendered, he might live. He might see them one more time. "I surrender," he said quietly. The words tasted like poison. "All ships, power down weapons and shields. Do not resist." Across the Valari fleet, thousands of crew members obeyed the order. Weapons went silent. Shields fell. The mighty conquest fleet became helpless, waiting for the humans to decide their fate. On the Dauntless, Lieutenant Park Yuna watched through a cracked window as rescue shuttles approached. Medical teams were already arriving, treating the wounded crew. She had refused treatment for herself until everyone else was taken care of first. "Lieutenant," Dohyun said. He was lying on a stretcher, his broken arm finally being properly treated. "We did it. We actually did it. We held the line," Yuna replied. Her voice was exhausted but proud. The Regnal army did the rest. A shuttle docked with the Dauntless, and Admiral Taiwan himself stepped aboard. He walked through the ruined corridors, past the burned consoles and broken systems, until he reached the bridge dot. When he saw Yuna, he stopped and saluted. Every officer with him saluted as well. "Lieutenant Park," Taiwan said, "on behalf of the United Earth Fleet and every human being alive, thank you. What you did here will never be forgotten." Yuna tried to salute back, but her legs finally gave out. She would have fallen if Taiwan had not caught her. "Easy, Lieutenant. You have earned some rest." "The crew," she mumbled. "Take care of the crew. They will receive the best care humanity can provide. I promise you that." Yuna nodded and finally allowed herself to close her eyes. For the first time in 5 days, she slept. The news of the battle spread across the galaxy within hours. The Valari Empire had sent a fleet to conquer humanity. The fleet had been completely defeated. Admiral Gorveth was a prisoner. The disabled dreadnought was being towed to Earth for study. But more important than any of that was the story of the Dauntless. On Kethro 7, the Moradi slaves heard the news. The small human ship had survived. The 47 humans who faced 3,000 warships had won. The Valari could be beaten. That night, the slaves refused to work. When the overseers came to punish them, they found not broken creatures, but beings standing tall with fire in their eyes. The rebellion had begun. Similar uprisings happened across the empire. Species that had been conquered for centuries suddenly remembered their pride. They looked at the Valari and saw not invincible masters, but frightened tyrants who could be defeated. Emperor Thalvax received the reports in his palace. The battle lost. His admiral captured. His empire beginning to crack. All because of one species he had never even heard of before this week. What do we know about these humans? He demanded. His advisors told him what they had learned. Humans came from a small planet called Earth. They had been fighting among themselves for thousands of years. They had survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. They never gave up. They never surrendered. When pushed, they pushed back harder. The Emperor listened in growing horror. This was not a primitive species. This was a civilization of survivors. A race that had evolved through constant struggle and emerged stronger each time. The Original Army, the Emperor said slowly. What does that name mean? One advisor spoke carefully. Our linguists believe it is derived from a human word. It means something like origin or beginning. Beginning. The Emperor understood now. This was not the end of anything. This was the start. 3 months later, Lieutenant Park Yuna stood before a crowd of millions in the capital city of Earth. She wore a formal uniform, her chest covered with medals. Behind her stood the 30 surviving crew members of the Dauntless. The President of the United Earth Government placed the Medal of Valor around her neck. The crowd cheered so loudly that the sound could be heard from space. When the ceremony ended, Yuna gave a short speech. She spoke simply, as she always did. I am not a hero, she said. I am an oceanographer who happened to be in the wrong place at the right time. The real heroes are the people who built the Original Army. They spent 30 years preparing for a war they hoped would never come. They gave us something to fight for. We just had to survive long enough for them to arrive. She paused and looked at her crew. They were all crying. So was she. We lost 8 friends out there. 8 people who died protecting their home. I carry their names with me every day, and I will carry them until I die. This medal belongs to them as much as it belongs to me. She stepped back from the microphone. The crowd cheered again. In the months that followed, the galaxy changed forever. The Valari Empire, weakened by rebellion and military defeat, began to collapse. Species that had been slaves for centuries became free. New alliances formed. New governments rose. And at the center of it all stood humanity. The young species from a small blue planet. The people who refused to surrender. The builders of the Original Army. Admiral Gorvath, now a prisoner on Earth, was asked by a human reporter what he thought of humanity. He was quiet for a long moment before answering. When we first detected your species, he said, we thought you would be easy to conquer. You were small, primitive, weak. We were wrong about everything. He looked at the reporter with his 4 eyes, and there was something like respect in them. You are the most dangerous species we have ever encountered. Not because of your weapons or your ships. Because of your spirit. You simply refuse to die. The reporter asked one more question. What would you tell other species who might think about attacking humanity? Gorvath did not hesitate. I would tell them to remember the Dauntless. 47 humans. 1 old ship. 5 days. And they held off an empire. He shook his head slowly. If that is what their scouts can do, imagine what their real soldiers are capable of. The reporter thanked him and ended the interview. Across the galaxy, beings of 100 different species read the story of Lieutenant Park Yuna and the crew of the Dauntless. They learned about humans and their strange, fierce determination. They learned about the Original Army, and they learned a simple truth that the Valari Empire had discovered too late. Humanity was not to be conquered. Humanity was to be feared.